Beardy and the Beast, The Second Wall.
Ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba. This is a placeholder intro song.
Welcome to The Second Wall, binge-free zone where we look at a series and discuss it in small chunks. This time we are looking at Joss Whedon's sci-fi classic, Firefly. We can be found on most podcast and social media platforms, a full list of which can be found at beardyandthebeast.com. Please watch the episode and then join Drew and I in the mess as we explore the verse. Drew, tell me I'm pretty.
You know what? That's one of the lines that I always remember about the series. If I were unwed, I would take you now in a daring and manly fashion because I'm pretty. Because you're pretty.
You're pretty. It is very much one of the defining lines of the show to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there's so much charm in it. But yeah, I forgot how much I liked this episode.
I'm not keen on it.
Well,
it's not an
okay.
episode for me.
You were wrong about the previous episode, and you can be wrong about this episode too.
Last episode was great.
All right. Well, let's start this way. Why are you not so keen on it?
Let's start why I'm keen on it.
Okay.
I'm keen on it because Sherry, the prostitute, is quite obviously Dracula. She's Draculette from Dracula 2000 because she earned herself quite a bag of silver. Best movie. Everything comes back to Dracula 2000.
All right.
Well, just as an episode, it's not all that striking. The episode as a whole doesn't have a lot of charm for me. The only thing that it seems to explore is Mal and Inara's relationship, which is powerful in the episode, but the episode itself doesn't have anything beyond that.
Well, I can see where you're coming from with that. For me, I think there's a few things. I think as the genre, the sci-fi western, this probably feels like the most western episode, next to the train job.
Was it the bad accident that the whorehouse leader was using and then abandoned halfway through the episode?
Yes. I also think that this being basically Inara's episode, as I see it, it's one of those things that's kind of long overdue. This is the first time we're actually seeing her with friends. It's seeing the conflict within Inara about Mal.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I almost got the feeling from Inara that she didn't realize the feeling she had for Mal, even though it's something we could all see.
Well,
and
that's one
that revelation was to her was such a big thing.
I disagree on one point. I don't think it was surprising to her, but the end result is kind of the same. One thing that this episode did allow me to do is separate my point of view about Inara and Mel's, like, will they, won't they? Is it divorce me from my own perceptions of it and actually took Anara's point of view as to what was occurring, and they did
Mm,
portray that quite well.
yeah.
Um, and it started right from the beginning, especially
Mhm.
when anytime um, there was like a romantic closeness or a moment that was about to spark, or she could push it to be something with Mel, she would instantly revert to a defensive standpoint and
Mhm.
make it about business or things that she typically, as her role in the ship, wouldn't really push, I guess you
Yeah.
could say. Um, like the whole like it's best we keep this as a strictly business relationship.
Mhm.
Um, came immediately from Mel showing compassion, interest, and care about her, and helping her friends.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like, I mean, I guess, yeah, she's always kind of known she's got those feelings. We wouldn't have the lines like, "Don't tell him that you pray for him,"
Yeah, yep.
type thing. Um, but I think it's her actually being confronted with it.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
It's one
word.
of the right. She didn't need to worry about it because Mal is professional
Hmm.
and can keep it professional even though he tries. And I think, like, I almost wonder in my head if this is kind of the negative to the companion training too. She's just used to keeping everyone at arm's length. Like
Mm.
you let them in a bit because you have to for your job, but not but you can't stay attached to them that way. So I
That's
wonder if there's an aspect like that there.
yeah, that's a good observation. I hadn't even considered that, but I think you're right on the money there. Um, hence why, like, the immediate affection from, unfortunately, I can't remember her name, the leader of the
Nandy?
house, Nandy.
Nandy,
Um,
yeah.
where she broke away from the companion training because it wasn't for her and had an immediate connection with Mal.
Mhm.
Um, so having that as the opposite of the way that Inara acts in those situations, it really does. It does become striking that you're likely right on the money there, especially with those lines like she would have been house head priestess, and things like that, and that she found it shocking that Inara was out on the
Yeah,
edge. So
yeah,
I
so
and there would like I know we do try to stay away from hypotheticals, but theory theory crafting about the companion houses, that's the only thing that would make sense and would probably be um right up there with uh like proper hygiene. There'd be mental clarity, always studying, like, and I think the mental clarity and emotional clarity are probably two um two things that they would have to strive
mhm,
for their job and their position to make sense and be sustainable.
yeah. Um, I think yeah, I think that's a big part of it. It was something I kind of you kind of see that throughout. It's like I think that's why Nandy also didn't recognize that Anara was just as attracted to Mal,
Hmm.
because you have that distancing. And I think part of what this episode does is it, um, even though it wasn't explored directly in this episode, I think it's something that was explored earlier with Simon.
Mm.
Simon is willing to give up everything for his family. This almost came across as Anara isn't ready to actually be able to do that. That's why she has to leave. She can't is almost what I got.
Well, I read the ending differently than that.
Okay.
So I saw the reason why she had to leave as being the same reason why she um, was traveling and out on the edge altogether.
Hmm.
Because she's someone who's looking for freedom, answers within herself, and she needs that independence. She needs that independence from like the companion houses and through grief, snap decisions, and fearing what a relationship with Mal might be, she has to reject that family which she's established so that she can try to regain that freedom.
Yeah, I definitely agree that there's a snap decision to that,
Hmm.
especially because they to use the horrible term, they subverted expectations with that whole final scene. Mal is is finally being honest about it,
Hmm.
right? Like we all knew, but
Well,
finally being
um, I never thought he was being dishonest about it.
um, that's fair. Honest might not be the right word. Blunt,
I think
just coming
just
out and saying it.
yeah, um, directly addressing. So blunt would
Yeah,
probably be the best
yeah,
term.
yeah. Um, and you have the way Anar is responding. It's it almost makes me think that she didn't know how she was going to end that conversation.
Well, she does that a lot, especially with Mel and um her fears. What Mel represents, specifically a relationship with Mel.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm wondering how tied it in is it to that paradigm within herself and that conflict she has within herself.
Mhm.
Um, but we also have to acknowledge how impactful it was that Mal hooked up with Nandy and the
Mhm.
emotional toll that would have taken, even if she was being honest, like that still bears emotional weight. Those feelings that she expressed would still be there, whether or not Nandy died.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think that's the entire reason, but it's just another large reason why she would want to leave.
Yeah. And I should say is it's like I don't think it's a snap reaction because Nandy died. I
No,
think it's a
no.
snap reaction just from the whole series of events here.
And there was
And
some big events there, right?
yeah, um, I think there were little things that I liked with how back in portrayed the emotions um, like after Mal slept with Nandy.
Mm.
Like because you could see it like she did very well at keeping her demeanor and her voice. Like she didn't sound different when she was talking to Mal and saying, "Oh yeah, no, she's happy for him and happy for Nandy," and that like her demeanor was there, but her eyes, like you could see the pain in her eyes. At least
I
I thought
didn't
it was there.
I didn't really see any pain in her eyes, but it was very odd.
Yeah.
Um, bec- because of how professional and like robotic she was acting in that when um it's out of place
Mhm.
in that situation, and that came to me like bringing that divorcing herself from her emotions to a business like standpoint, like she was falling back to that.
Yeah.
So like the end result is the same. Like we
Yeah.
agree. I just didn't see it in the eyes, but I noticed different oddity.
Yeah. Um, Another thing I wonder with her decision to leave, uh, I wonder if it's not even necessarily about the family needing freedom.
Hmm.
I wonder if it's more of the idea that she can't forgive herself for how she was acting,
Oh, that's a good point.
right? Because at every turn, as and you said, like throughout the series, whenever they get anywhere near close, with the exception of Saffron, like when he like Mal was one who said something when at that point, um, she always goes defensive and pushes it away. So you get Nandy, who is really the closest we've seen to Inara, but just that little bit darker edge that fits
Hmm.
with Mal. And it's so it makes sense that Mal was with her, and it's devastating to her, and she's smart. She knows she did it to herself.
Well, I think you've identified the problem here. I think she knew that Mal liked her.
Mhm,
Um, Mel knew that Mal liked her,
mhm.
but when Mal would try to make those inroads, Inara would become defensive and reject.
Yeah,
Um, by changing the topic, keeping it business, etc. And this is one of the things that I was kind of mentioning where it kind of this episode allowed me to separate from my point of view and see it from Inara's point of view. I don't think Mel knew that Inara liked him,
I agree.
like, at all.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I completely agree with that. There's a lot of evidence that throughout the series and even in this episode. Um, Again, that's why his thought was Inara kissed Saffron, not
Mm,
him, right? With the poison, uh, and then we get just the way she goes defensive without going defensive, right? Again, it's easy to keep it professional,
mhm.
uh, and I think the big point of that was with Nandy, and she says, "Oh, you lied to me. You didn't tell me," implying that Mal should have known that Inara liked her
Mm.
because Nandy wouldn't have done that. But you're right. No, he wouldn't have done that. So when he says, "No, there's no one else in the room but you and me," I think Mal believes that 'cause I don't think he sees it going anywhere. It's not stopping him from trying.
Mhm.
Right? She hasn't said no. She's just you know, playing hard to get, for lack of a better term. It's not quite accurate, but close enough.
Yeah, it's not really the
Yeah,
right term from his
yeah,
point of view, but
I just can't think of like from us watching the show, right? Stepping back, it's essentially what she's doing by keeping it at arm's bay because he is still interested.
yeah, but there's a weird series of like implications. Not probably shouldn't argue the
Hmm.
like the
Yeah,
minuscule points.
yeah,
It's we both agree it's not the correct term, but we can't think of the most appropriate term for
yeah.
it. um,
Uh,
but yeah, and that's so that's what the thing that this episode did well.
mm, yeah.
It really solidified all the things you suspected about the way that they were interacting with each other.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm sad that a cool character like Nandy, post accent drop, was killed off.
Mm.
I thought she would have been like a fun temporary addition to the crew or something like that.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of reasons that they didn't do that way. Also, I'm not upset about her accent dropping anymore. She specifically said she learned how to say ain't.
Yeah, but
She was
by
forcing that accent. She was forcing that accent. And then could drop it in the later half when it's the trusted crew.
okay, I disagree.
I'm going with it. It's honestly the only reason I'm saying that is because she specifically said she had to learn how to say ain't.
Maybe that was added in for the recordings because they realized how bad her accent was.
um, uh, I, when it comes to Nandy, I I don't think she would fit as an addition to the crew.
That's why I said temporary.
I don't even know how temporary it would work. Like I could see, keeping her around more like a badger where it's like occasionally you go through, but there wasn't enough established around that.
Mm.
Um and having her as a temporary addition to the crew, she doesn't fit as well as Inara does and as Saffron could. Just
Well, that's where
she's
the interest in the conflict comes from, right? So
the
it's
thing is,
just
I
fun.
don't think I'd see the conflict. I don't think I'd see a conflict around that with Nandy. I mean, they seriously, she's too much like Mal. She's too dedicated to her girls. That
Oh,
it's
yeah, I'm not
it's not
saying
something
that
that I
she
would ever
wouldn't
see happening.
leave.
Yeah,
I'm not saying she would leave. I'm just saying I'd like to see that dynamic because there
that's
wouldn't
fair.
be
That's fair.
anyone who would be able to directly disagree with Mal in the way that she could.
Yeah, yeah.
It'd be a completely new dynamic, especially because in the long run we would have Inara leave anyways, and that's why the consideration is a temporary replacement. But
Yeah.
yeah, one of the few interesting characters.
Mm.
But I would have definitely loved to see her recurring, like a Badger or a
Yes.
Niska or wait, did they kill Niska? No, Niska escaped.
Yeah, I think got away.
One other thing that I really liked about this episode was the baby conversation between Wash and Zoe. Because they kind of flipped it about him being the hesitant one and weighing risk and stuff, and her just being like, "What is
Yes.
it? I'm not so afraid about losing something that I'm not even going to attempt to have or whatever."
Yeah.
It was a good phrase that I completely just butchered, but it's nice to see that kind of development and push and like reveal of Zoe's personality.
It's a good reveal of Zoe's personality, and it's I think one of the only reveals of Wash's personality.
That's because we all know that Wash is the funny one.
Yeah.
They stated in this episode.
Yep. I mean, it almost goes like, oh, this is why Wash is such a non-character. He literally is afraid to risk anything. Is almost how that comes across. Like you could extrapolate that. So I say it's like the only character development we kind of get from him.
Well, I mean, like you could remove Wash from Firefly, and Zoe would still stand and it'd still be a good show.
Yeah.
But if you remove Zoe and left Wash, Wash would probably be a nothing character, and it wouldn't be quite as good a show, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. Speaking of Wash and Kaylee, I really liked how they fought on Serenity. Like, they were smart about it, you know. It's like, no, they're not the fighters, but we know the ship. Well, it's going to be super easy for us to trap them here. I thought that was a nice touch. I also liked how Kaylee immediately knew something was wrong the second she stepped on Serenity again. It just shows that connection to the ship. And again, the personification that she does, like, I'll talk to her to see what we can do about getting the water pump and stuff like that. It's it's cute. I like it.
Well, that's why everybody likes Kaylee.
It's true.
It's like I always say, like everybody wants to date Kaylee, but like feminine personalities want to be Inara. It's never really the opposite.
Yep.
People don't want to be Kaylee, and I don't know. My perception.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. At least it sounds that way. But it's I don't know. She's adorable. That's what matters here.
The only important thing that happened in this episode, Kaylee was adorable.
Yes, it's true. She's pretty.
Speaking of babies, um, there was there was during the birthing scene.
Yeah.
Uh, there was a line that Inara said, and I swear River had said it before or says it in the future. She says, "This is just a moment in time. Step aside and let it happen."
Yeah, I do think. Yeah, I remember that coming from River as well. Um, I don't think she said it yet.
Yeah, just like I couldn't place it. Um,
I wonder if she says it in the movie.
I mean, I searched earlier and it seemed to only be attributed to her. But
Uh, it could be one of those things where it's close
mm,
but not exact, which could be why it doesn't really show up in a search. Um, I think part of it too is it could be it kind of comes across as something River would say.
mhm.
It's got that crypticness to it. Um,
It's possible it might. It comes across to me like they changed the character that it was associated with, uh, like during filming or something, just as a production note. Sounds like a line they would give River, but then be like, it's too direct, it's too on the nose.
mm,
And then we know that Anara's well read, and um, we make assumption that she's probably studied things like poetry and stuff. So she's well spoken. So it would be an easy transfer to her. I, c-
mm,
I could see it being a situation where it was originally Rivers and they just like moved it over because it didn't feel right
yeah.
being so direct, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I'm almost wondering if there's something else to that line too. I'm just wondering how it could fit into just the rest of the episode overall. I'm trying to form the thought in my head, which tells me it's
Well, it's,
probably no way accurate.
it is interesting, and it is like if we were to take it from River, so we could make it meta.
Mhm.
Um, well, I guess if we were to more accurately, let's borrow from Doctor Who for a
All right.
quick moment. So the Doctor is unable to modify fixed moments in time.
Right.
Um, I'm not too familiar. I don't know if it's like a pact or an order that they can't, or it's something fundamental with the universe that they're unable to. But moments in time, there was some pretty strong moments in time in this episode, including um, birth of a child, um, the death of a villain, the death of a hero, and more abstractly, like emotions being laid bare.
Yeah.
Um, so this entire episode was packed full of them.
Mm.
If we're to give meaning to the phrase, a moment in time,
Yeah.
um, w- which is actually to get off this kind of like random, rambly meta thing. It also means that she didn't take her own advice at the end.
That's where I was kind of going with it.
So if we were to bring it back to Inara, she said, she gave advice to the person who was giving birth to someone, but then did not take her own advice when it came to um, the emotional confrontation with Mal.
Yeah. And that's the thought I was trying to form. So I think it's kind of important that it came with her. And again, it kind of fits with the other things. It's like the emotional situation you're in it's all you. You were the one not being honest,
Mm-hmm.
right? You literally did this to yourself. And I think that's just an extension of that.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that it'd be fantastic, when we see Inara come back from all of this and realize how she messed up, because we'll totally see that.
Yeah, in season 2, right?
Yeah, in season 2.
um, there was another thing in this scene that was very odd to me.
Hmm.
Why did Inara kiss Simon on the cheek?
Um, I think that's yeah. It seems something more like Kaylee would do.
Yeah, like I understand, like, a hand on the shoulder, but they never really illustrated that deep of a relationship, that like an encouragement peck on the cheek. It seemed very out of place, so I don't know why it was there.
Yeah, I can say like it didn't jump out at me as an issue when it was there. I was like, yeah, it's something I could see Inara doing. Even though now that you mentioned, it's like, oh no, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
um, I almost feel like they almost packed in a little too much with Inara in this. So like I think there could have just been, I don't know. I guess the lead up outside of it isn't necessarily there. They're like, oh crap, we've forgot about Inara almost, and put almost too much development around some of those relationships, especially
Mm-hmm.
if they're having her leave. Um, it's hard to say. Like it didn't jump out, as I said, it didn't jump out to me as an issue, but I can see exactly why you're seeing it as something odd. Um,
This entire episode has an oddity to it. Like it feels very season 2. Um,
you know what I think it is?
mm,
Because one thing to bear in mind with like Firefly didn't even get to finish its first season.
mm-hmm.
This episode very much feels like it could be the um, mid-season finale,
Okay.
right? You kind of have that everything break apart, and then the second half of the season is going to be how is this getting repaired in whichever way. Because we see that pretty consistently, and it matches a lot of the emotional beats that's within the show because it's very packed with it.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's meant to be that mid season cliffhanger type thing, or like a season finale, even if it wasn't canceled midway through,
Yeah.
uh, and I think that's why that's there. I think because there's a lot of kind of questions around it left, and again, you can't really. Well, unfortunately, we know we're not getting answers to them. uh,
Well, I mean, they might be in the comics and whatnot.
yeah, in the comics or something. Um, but we're not talking about the comics. um, so I think that's part of it. I think that was the emotional impact that they were trying to go through with this episode, because obviously they were planning on resolving it, but they also left it in a way that it could be seen somewhat as a final farewell. But if that was the case, I would expect that, as you said, a season 2 thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, because as like major story beats, to have a character leave the ship so suddenly, like it seems out of place.
yeah,
Uh, obviously, like, as far as the story goes, it couldn't be at the time that River gets captured,
Yeah.
because that would be the inevitable story cliffhanger at the end of the
Yes.
first season or whatever.
Yeah.
It couldn't be alongside that. And mainly because I don't think Inara would leave unless it was to find a different route to rescue River.
Yeah.
So the impact would be otherwise. In
Mm.
fact, I could see the reason why she would come back would be
So
to help with River.
okay,
It,
I want to kind of explore. I'll take a little bit of what you said there and explore this with Inara. Um, so we recognize that we know she left the companion houses um, for some undisclosed reason. Uh, I almost wonder if it's not even the like. Obviously, the emotional beats with Mal pushes her to her decision to leave. I wonder. I got a lot of mystery from Inara this time.
Hmm.
We get that with stuff that's being said with Nandy as well, right? So, what if there's another aspect here? Uh, and this kind of explains that weird conversation, like her weird farewell
Hmm.
at the end as well. Um, what if she's feeling too close to the crew as a family, and that is stopping her from doing whatever she left? And it's not necessarily about freedom. Maybe there was literally something else
Okay.
she's doing, and she's realizing that she just got comfortable here and not doing whatever it is.
Hmm.
Because if she was on this path to again basically mirroring Simon, she's on this path to be the top of the top, right? Simon made his choice to drop all of that, and she hasn't made the choice to drop whatever it is she's doing, but got sidetracked.
Yeah, it's either she was on a journey with a particular end, or the reason why she is making the snap judgment to leave is directly related to how she ended up on the ship in the first place. Like we
Yeah,
discussed earlier in the season, that everybody's there for their own reasons, but they're generally, it ends up coming because of a sense of freedom and a sense of like necessity,
yeah,
and then they stay for the family.
yeah,
So um I it all depends, like, it's all at degrees how much we would weigh her feeling weighed down by the ship as a representation of family, or her possibly feeling weighed down um, by a potential relationship with Mal.
mm,
So it's
yeah,
definitely both. But what is the
yeah.
percentages? Because I'd probably agree with any numbers. Well, any numbers aside from like 2080.
Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, I almost feel, and this could again be why it feels odd to you. Yeah, because yeah, I think I'm convincing myself. I think this was a catalyst for Inara to leave on whatever her storyline is,
Hmm.
as opposed to being the reason for her leaving. Because yeah, there's just too much. Like the way that she talks about the crew, like even when she's jesting and doing those, she's doing the family type insults
Hmm.
throughout. Right? It's the um, you have that with we're just saying, oh, they've got guns. uh, when you have stuff like that, it's and again, even the peck on the cheek of Simon's like, no, this is family. Okay, maybe it was there's that encouraging thing. We just haven't really seen it before, right? Uh,
That's just a
so
weird choice I was pointing out.
yeah, no, it's I guess just trying to make it all work. I think it was weird because it's the first time,
That
and
makes sense.
we don't really get to see anything else like that. Um, right? I mean, she's obviously got that affection for River. I mean, I love how she instinctively like went and grabbed River when what's his name came in to
Mhm.
take the baby. Um, so like she obviously cares for the family, and maybe this is this one's a bit speculation. I wonder if there's something. I'm kind of looking through mirrors throughout the season now. Um, I almost wonder if there's something like there was with Jane. Like I wonder if she's
I think
like
I think we would have caught on to it if there was some like deep Jainisms on this one. I think it was something that they were going to explore.
yeah, and like I'm not saying like completely with the mirror with Jane. It's just I can see kind of threads around this, like when Jane turned on the Tams, and his whole thing was, don't let them know. That was his way of trying to protect himself and show that he cared
Yeah.
about the family. So again, part of this makes me go, it's like, okay, well, she just saw all of the stuff that Nandy and her girls went through. Um, it almost makes me wonder, is like, is there something coming after her that she thinks is putting them in a danger as well? Like it's
Oh, that could be a read. Like she fears the potential that something she's done or doing will put the crew in harm's way and might lead to, say, Mal's death.
yeah, it kind of makes sense to me because it's I understand her not telling Mal why she left for whatever reason.
Mhm.
Again, I don't think Mal's he's interested, but he's not going to push it. But the fact that Nandy says the same thing and they're clearly good friends.
You know, just to throw out a random hypothetical scenario that I could see happening. Um, I could see Inara taking on a client who ended up being like abusive, and in defending herself, she ended up killing him.
Mhm.
And we know that on some of these central planets, they're like really big about honor and stuff, and they haven't really explored like honor revenge stuff from, say, like the uh, like Asian aspects that are added into this story. They haven't explored any of that either. So it's entirely possible that's, though in a legal sense, she's um she's fine. From an honor sense, someone might be chasing her or something.
I I think there's evidence in this to support that.
Really? Go
Yes.
me, super smart.
All
Let's
right.
go.
So, um, the evidence isn't directly to NR in this case. But again, this show, with the exception of like one episode, has always been filled with mirrors of the plot lines.
Yeah, yeah.
Why did Nandy leave?
Okay, so the life wasn't for her. She wasn't studied to. Um, she wasn't someone who could climatize to the structured and repeated practice, et cetera, right?
Right. Especially after she broke that dulcimer and all of a sudden had the master.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
And like I could see that being that mirror. We don't know that's what it is with Anara because she's not telling anyone. But that's where I see that connecting to basically the exact way you spelled it out there. And we know that in theory the companions do have protection for that type of thing. We've had evidence of that throughout the show, but sometimes that doesn't matter,
Hmm.
especially when you then go and show how some of these people act. Like I mean, the whatever generic villain's name was in this here. Is the
Jerkface.
same. Yeah, yeah, jerkface.
The actual definition of toxic masculinity.
Yeah. Right. We know people are going to do that. They're going to take what they want. We've seen Inara have clients like that.
Mhm.
We saw Mal get stabbed over a client like that.
To be in defense of that other jerkface, though, he was an a-hole, but towards Inara, he would have been sweet and tender, right?
Yeah.
It would have been more transactional opposed to like a control violence thing.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like his base personality was brought out by Mal.
Yeah.
That's always who he was. It would just had to be revealed.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think there's a lot more to this with Inara, and again, it'll be fantastic when we get to explore this in later episodes.
Oh, I'm sad because there's only one episode left in the series.
I know. Yeah. I think, you want to know one thing that feels a little bit like, I get it. It fits with Mal, but kind of seems a little out of place.
Hmm.
When he was measuring up Jerkface McJerkface,
Yeah.
his immediate, like, clearly he's just good at reading people.
Yeah.
You know this. But his immediate thing is like, yep, nope, we're running. And, I understand his reasons for it. Like, no, there's nothing you can do when you have someone who's like twisted like that and thinks he's righteous.
Yeah.
Like, there's that zealotry that there's just nothing you can do against. And I completely understand his idea to run. But that wasn't his same thought when it came to like Niska. It's just like this weird, I don't know, not reading the person quite right, or just the responses don't seem quite in line.
I think the Niska thing, I think they actually addressed that with a few lines in that. And
You're right, they kind of did, yeah.
and Mel did try to divorce it from the like the innocence on board.
Mhm.
And I think they only took it because of necessity, if I remember.
Right.
Well, I mean, I agree. In hindsight, it does seem weird.
Yeah. I guess they did kind of address it. As you said that, it kind of clicked in my head again. And I guess that's the difference too. Niska was business, so you figure you have a business way out of it. And I mean, I guess he even showed that in that episode where they were able to buy back one of the crew members, basically pay the ransom for it. So I guess that makes a difference too. You think there's no reason to think you can't work with Niska. He's definitely not a good guy, but I guess doesn't have that zealotry that this guy seemed to have.
You do, like, to point it out, there is a bit of a failing in that, and it's not the Niska side, it's actually McJerkface's. Sure, the zealotry is a scary factor, but I don't think position and means. I honestly don't think that he would have actually represented that big of a threat to Mal.
Right.
Especially when the end came down to, like, we're gonna kill a bunch of people anyways.
Yeah, and I guess Mal did say that too. It wasn't that they didn't think they could stop him this time.
Yeah, it's that he'd come back.
Yeah. So without actually,
So I guess
yeah,
originally he wasn't intending to kill anybody.
yeah,
I think he was focused on keeping people safe, and it might be simply just because I don't think he would have made that decision if the relationship, like the strings of relationships to Nandy, flowed in the way that they did.
mhm,
Like if it was a random whorehouse, they'd probably just like have it settled like they did in the carriage. The
yeah,
was it I swear on my pretty floral bonnet that I will end you.
yeah,
Um, so I guess like because they're not mercenaries, right? They're
no,
thieves.
yeah,
So yeah, I guess no, it does make sense. I'm just
yeah,
nitpicking. I'm wrong.
yeah. That is an interesting little side discussion because it jumped out, but I think it made it work properly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely threads, and I think it really helped that Nandy had the fire to fight as
Hmm.
well, right? Like I said, you're my kind of stupid. Um, um, there's a lot of quotable stuff in this episode, I think. um, yeah, don't really know if I have too much else offhand. Um,
Yeah, it's just like the position in the episode. There wasn't enough lead up to it.
mm,
Um, there was like there's something missing between the primary storyline and this episode. It's like they
mm,
skip something. I often bring up the fact that I think that these episodes were written out of order.
mhm,
And in this case, I think this was written in appropriate order, but one of two situations occurred. Either um, they were trying to fit in some obvious story beats that should happen before the series ended, which I don't think is the case.
yeah,
Because these type of shows do get a cult following and then do get renewed like a year or two later.
yeah,
On I don't know, like Sci-Fi Channel or whatever.
yeah,
Um, and then the other option is this was something that was planned for slightly later or a future event. That just so happened that they needed to push up because for a character, um, and story progression, perhaps it was the best beats that they could fit in to the first season before it ended, right?
yeah, yeah. I'm definitely leaning. So, as far as episodes being out of order, this is like one of the least out of order in a
Yeah,
way. Like
agreed.
um, which leads me to yeah, I'm gonna lean into that more. I think this was meant to be that mid-season
Hmm.
finale or finale. I don't know why they call it mid-season finales, but that's what they do.
Yep.
Like that's I think that's what it was. It's supposed to be and now we're going to our winter break, and then we're going to pick it back up and be able to explore the stuff that we laid out here. So we can lay it out heavy because it's going to be emotional. It's going to hit everyone. People are going to remember it, and they're going to want to come back to see how it plays out. Uh, because it didn't, like as you said, it doesn't have that. Oh no, the show's being canceled. We got to put in these plot points type feel.
Hmm.
Like it was set up for future episodes. I'm
This
confident of that.
I think I you know what it is? The oftentimes and during the mid-season finales they have two-parters.
Hmm.
I think this should have been a two-parter.
Yeah,
Um, the story that they told, they could add some extra scenes to it. Um, that would be more than the standard, was it 40-minute total runtime or whatever?
yeah,
Um, but that would also allow for some additional fluff and character moments with the other characters.
Mm,
But yeah, I'm mostly in agreement with you.
yeah. Um,
That's
so
all I got.
yep. I said I totally look forward to see how they resolve all of this.
Being